Okay, we're going to talk about the Roseto effect. What is the Roseto effect? Roseto effect is the benefit of social support. And it comes from, it's like a town, I think it's in Pennsylvania, called Roseto. A lot of Italian families with big families, and everybody's all living in the same house. Grandma, grandpa, mom and dad, and the little kids, grandchildren and whatnot, and quite often a cousin too, Luigi or whatever. So anyways, what's the point? That these were primarily working class families, and what they found was the population of Roseto compared to demographic matched populations in other towns had better longevity, better long-term survival, better health. You know, even when you match them for alcohol and for smoking cigarettes and whatnot, they'd have fewer myocardial infarctions and surviving better. So what's the point? The point was felt that the Roseto extended families living together provided increased social support. So if Luigi loses his job, he's still living with the family, he's got some time, he's got food, he can go find another job. On the other hand, if you're by yourself and you lose your job living in a city, can't pay your rent, can't buy yourself any food, that's a big problem. So this social support provided what is a big improvement in health, and that's called the Roseto effect. Another thing I think is pretty interesting and related to this is Valiant. The guy's name, I think, is George Valiant. He's a Harvard psychiatrist, MD, who was in charge of the data for several lifetime longitudinal studies, including the Harvard's men's studies. He's written about 3 or 4 books on it. They're pretty good. He basically comes up with one main point. It's sort of love conquers all, the sense that having good social skills, good social resilience, able to get along with people, able to make the most of a situation was one of the most important variables in whether or not people were healthy and enjoyed their golden years, so to speak. So he really emphasized the importance of having good coping skills and good social skills to get along and make the most of those years in life after 50 years of age. So it's a pretty good study. You know, of course, alcoholism and tobacco ruin people's lives. They make you real sick. And nowadays, being fat and diabetic ruins people's lives. But he emphasized that their social skills for coping and getting along were more important than their cholesterol level, in his opinion. And he followed a lot of data. Actually, his books are kind of interesting. All right, the next one is a little bit on stress. Some of the key things in stress. When we say stress, we're talking about psychological stress. Our ancestors had stress primarily for physical reasons. And the classic way to remember what happens in stress is getting chased by a tiger in the dark. Okay, so your pupils dilate because it's dark, you got to run, so you need more blood supply to your muscles, you shut down blood supply to the intestinal tract, you shut down the immune system because you don't need an immune system. You got to survive the next 5 minutes. You're not worried about long-term things like muscle growth, for example. You get a big increase in cortisol. And it comes from the adrenal glands. You get an increase in epinephrine, also called adrenaline, norepinephrine, also called noradrenaline. Okay? Another thing too is caffeine is very similar to that effect of stress. And the reason why it's different in us now than it is in our hunter-gatherer ancestors is theirs was more of a physical thing versus us. We often have prolonged psychological stress that lasts a longer amount of time. And it's more of an intellectual cognitive thing, but we feel it physically. And the point being is we can get a very prolonged elevation of cortisol and these other hormones, which will cause they can cause some high blood pressure, hypertension. Cortisol can increase blood glucose, increase your tendency trending towards hyperglycemia and diabetes. It can cause muscle wasting and obesity, so it's not good. It can make you sick. But the point I'm saying is some people say, oh, I'm so stressed out, I need a cup of coffee. Well, that's like saying I'm stressed out, I need more stress, okay? Caffeine mimics the acute stress response. It's almost like a little jolt to stress. And it can also interrupt sleep. Sleep helps you recover from stress. When you're drinking caffeine, you will have a tendency to sleep less deeply, especially you want, if you're going to drink, I recommend no coffee. I don't drink any coffee, no tea, none of that stuff. I don't have any extra caffeine. I don't want it. But if you do, get it done in the morning as much as possible because it'll have a half-life of about 8 hours and it'll be sticking around. You won't sleep as deep. You'll have less ability to recover. There's something called the Yerkes-Dodson curve of stress, whereby a little bit of stress can get you motivated to do some activity. And stress can be helpful a little bit to energize you for doing a project that you're looking forward to, let's say. But excessive amounts of stress will then decrease your performance if it makes you anxious, for example. And that's called the Yerkes-Dodson curve. And I think of that like the Socrates questioning method for teaching. It's good when Socrates asks a question because then the student is kind of alerted and has to focus and they'll remember that moment. So I think that helps you for teaching. But excessive psychological stress, then that can limit, that anxiety will decrease. And I think part of what that's all about, I can actually draw a picture of that one. Let me draw a quick picture of that. is, you guys remember the three-part brain of McLean? Let me draw the three-part brain of McLean here. McLean said, he's a neuroanatomist at Harvard. You got the human brain. You can draw the human brain pretty easily. It basically looks like a fist, like a boxing glove. First thing at the bottom is the brain stem, okay? And the brain stem is the reptile brain. And that's just to keep you alive, your heart beats, your blood pressure is maintained. Then the thing in the middle, there's something in the middle shaped like a letter C. And the upper part's a cingulate gyrus. And then this will be, I'll just put parahippocampal gyrus. They're in continuity through the isthmus there, and your hippocampus sort of sits right in on here. I put HC for hippocampus. And that's really your mammal brain. Mammal brain. Or limbic. So, for the mammal brain, what a mammal needs to do in comparison with a reptile can just lay an egg and walk away. A mammal's got to take care of the baby, nurse the baby. But it's still a quick reflexive brain. And then the higher brain is sort of the primate human brain up here, the cerebral cortex, all the stuff up here. And that enables more sophisticated thinking, delaying gratification, calm, objective perusal of a concept, let's say. Okay, so what's the point? When you're stressed out, you're shifting down into the limbic brain, the mammal brain, and it's more reactive. It's not as intelligent, okay? So what I'm trying to say is, if you just have to do a repetitive physical task, a cup of coffee or being stressed out is okay, it can kind of charge you up to just get the task done. On the other hand, if you want to do sophisticated thinking, you want to be in your cerebral cortex level of function. So anyways, that's it for stress. The Rosetta effect, the key point of this talk was that good social support, in that particular case, extended families, was helpful for improved health and psychological function.